continue to regain lost ground on Dalal Street. The Nifty reclaims 22,900. Mid-cap index gains over 2%. The rupee strengthens against the dollar by over 12 paise. Wall Street treads with caution as investors await the U.S. Federal Reserve's rate decision. Later tonight, the CNBC Fed survey points to a status quo policy. 36% respondents expect a recession compared to 23% in January. Vedanta's Anil Agarwal promises to reduce debt by $3.5 billion by 2027, ready to exit the steel business at the right price, says prices of aluminum, zinc are seeing premiums like never before. Vows professional management will run the companies after the proposed demerger, not the family. That's an exclusive. The Indian government considers a safeguard duty on flat steel products to ward off dumping of goods from countries like China. The Director General of Trade Remedies recommends a 12% tariff on imports. The move comes days after US President Trump imposed a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports into the US. Setback for Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea. The government sources say the Cabinet Secretariat has informed the Telecom Department that the proposal to waive interest and penalty in its current form on outstanding AGR dues is no longer under consideration. Could there be room for a revised formula is the question. Russia's Vladimir Putin agrees not to attack Ukraine's energy infrastructure for 30 days after a phone call with the US President Donald Trump, but does not agree to a full ceasefire. Both Ukraine and Russia accuse each other of targeting the energy grid despite the ceasefire. This is just the beginning, warns Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu as airstrikes pound Gaza for the second day. Hamas says its doors are open for negotiations. More than 400 Palestinians have been killed in the last 2 days.
A call for the end of US exceptionalism is a tad premature.
It's premature to call the end of US exceptionalism, says Citigroup's global CEO Jane Fraser. Adds India central to Citi's transformation plans as she bets big on the global capability centers. That's an exclusive. Boeing is working hard to win the trust of its customers, says senior executive Brendan Nelson. Admits production rate was slowed down to ensure better quality. Promises deliveries to Air India and Akasa even as the current order backlog is around 5,500 aircraft. That's an exclusive. CCI officials seize mobile phone records after raids at top advertising agencies days ahead of the start of the Indian Premier League. Sources say the regulator acted on a complaint that agencies allegedly colluded with the Indian Broadcasting and Digital Foundation to fix IPL ad rates at a discount with broadcasters. NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore returned to Earth after spending 9 unscheduled months at the International Space Station. A SpaceX capsule carrying the astronauts splashed down safely off the coast of Florida. Well, let's start with the market action. The sensex and the Nifty gaining for the third day as bulls reclaimed more lost ground on Dalal Street. The Nifty reclaimed the 22,900 mark and the sensex gained nearly 150 points. The Nifty Bank was up by about 400 points and the mid-cap index saw a jump there of about 1,300 points today. So we are seeing the rally continue in the markets and, of course, some recovery underway. Now to the action from the money market. The rupee continues to rebound against the dollar. The rupee gaining about 12 paise in trade today. The dollar index has been under pressure for the last couple of weeks after rallying since the start of the year. Bond prices and yields remained largely steady. So that's the dollar rupee. 86.44 is where it closed for the day. And Wall Street is awaiting the US Federal Reserve's rate decision later tonight. The Fed is likely to keep the policy rates unchanged. According to the CNBC Fed survey, most of the respondents raised the probability of a recession now to 36%. That's up from 23% in January. Now, most of them also anticipate 2 or more rate cuts this year. Respondents have also cut their 2025 GDP forecast from 2.4% to 1.7%. Further, over 70% of the respondents also expressed fears that tariffs will be bad for jobs as well as for growth in the US. And you can catch the coverage of the US Fed decision starting 11 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. Do stay tuned and get the CNBC edge. Crude prices easing after Russia and Ukraine agreed to stop attacking each other's energy infrastructure, but only temporarily. Economic uncertainty is sparked by US President Donald Trump's trade tariffs also weighing on prices. So that's the action as far as the oil markets are concerned. But in the gold markets, gold hovering near record highs again. This is escalating geopolitical tensions in West Asia continue to drive safe haven buying. A weakening dollar index has also supported prices of gold. Let's talk about the big newsmaker tonight. Vedanta is gearing up for a mega demerger process which will create 4 more independent entities with the focus on aluminum, oil and gas, power, iron and steel and base metals. Vedanta's shareholders as well as creditors have already approved the plan. I spoke exclusively with Vedanta chairman Anil Agarwal. He told me that professional management will run the companies after the proposed demerger and not the family. He also said the conglomerate will definitely consider exiting the steel business if they get the right price. Speaking about the group's debt-paring efforts, Agarwal said that they were looking at trimming debt on the parent company by $3.5 billion by 2027. Agarwal was also bullish about demand for commodities. He said that he's never seen the kind of premiums he was seeing on aluminum, zinc and gas. On a lighter note, Agarwal said that drill baby drill, one of the US President Trump's election slogans, has been his stance for the last 25 years.
75% of my personal wealth has been pledged for giving back. This company is not going to run by a family. This company is going to run by top professional, top mind for the country on the having the best of governance. And we have to go through this because India has not seen this kind of ventures, this kind of development, and the trust is building. We have never seen premium on the aluminium what we see today. Highest premium in the zinc is the highest premium. Or gas. Can you believe that gas in India you can sell at $10? And same thing on the oil. So it is a time, it shows that how much is the consumption is increasing in India of this metal. If we get our price, we will definitely consider. But as it is, the company is doing extremely well and they are making cash profit and we are very comfortable. But definitely, I would like to put that effort to my other business. If we get a right price, we might sell. We have a full plan that we will be completely reducing our debt on the parent company in 3 to 4 years' time. This year, 25, we are going to reduce $1 billion debt. 26, we are going to reduce another $1 billion debt. And 27, we are going to reduce $1.5 billion debt. I have always said 2 things. In India, very, very important is drill, baby, drill, dig, baby, dig. That's what our whole world is saying. If you look at the President Trump, or if you look at Trump, and I was the one last 25 years consistently. I have not changed my business.
And you can catch the full interview with Vedanta's chairman Anil Agarwal at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. The government is considering a safeguard duty on flat steel products to ward off dumping of goods from countries like China. The Director General of Trade Remedies has recommended a 12% tariff on imports for at least 200 days. Now, the move comes days after US President Trump imposed a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports into the US. Steel stocks rallied in trade, anticipating the potential safeguard duty in India. But it's important to note that these duties have not come into effect. This is only the DGTR's recommendation. The process now is that the Finance Ministry, if it is an agreement, will have to notify the safeguard duty. So the safeguard duty has not been imposed yet. The Cabinet has approved an incentive scheme worth 1,500 crore rupees to boost low-value UPI transactions. The initiative will aim to strengthen digital payments and expand UPI penetration in rural and remote areas. Under the scheme, UPI transactions up to 2,000 rupees made to small merchants will be eligible for an incentive of 0.15% per transaction value. However, large merchants will not receive any incentives for such transactions. In a likely setback for Airtel and Vodafone Idea, government sources have told CNBC TV 18 that the proposal to waive AGR penalties is no longer being considered, but the Telecom Department has the option of sending another revised proposal. Ashmit Kumar joins us now with the details. Ashmit, what does this mean for these companies now? And is there still room, is there a window still open for a fresh proposal?
Well, indeed, a setback coming in as far as telecom players, the likes of Airtel and Vodafone Idea are concerned. The players who had been hoping for some relief in the form of an AGR waiver. Bear in mind that the DoT had contemplated and had put forth a waiver program under which there was a proposal for waiving of 50% of the interest component of this AGR demand and 100% of the penalty and 100% of the interest on penalty component. This was the proposal that was floated first by the DoT. It went through the motions, first the DoT, then the Finance Ministry, also went up to the Cabinet Secretariat. However, what highly placed functionaries within the government tell us is that there will be no further consideration under this proposal that had been put forth by the DoT, the Cabinet Secretariat sending it back to the DoT, saying no further consideration. Again, a confirmation being received by highly placed government functionaries. Now, bear in mind that this decision by the Cabinet, importantly, comes at a time when the Supreme Court repeatedly has refused to budge as far as the AGR demand is concerned. The telecom companies, the likes of Airtel and Vodafone Idea, have repeatedly tried to impress on the court that there could be computational errors, there could be arithmetic errors, there could be possible double counting. However, the Supreme Court refusing to budge, and it is only after the Supreme Court's refusal that the DoT had begun to contemplate such kind of relief. However, we're given to understand no further consideration, at least as far as this proposal is concerned, that shifts the focus back to the DoT. Is there room, is there flexibility for coming out with a revised relief package? That's a question that the telecom minister, that the DoT will now have to answer. Back to you.
All right, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us. That's the latest on the AGR issue. Moving on, another big international story. Russian President Vladimir Putin has agreed not to attack Ukraine's energy infrastructure for 30 days after a phone call with US President Donald Trump. During the 2-hour-long phone call, both leaders also agreed that Ukraine and Russia will swap 175 prisoners on each day of the ceasefire. Remember, Ukraine agreed to the US proposal to pause all military action for 30 days. However, President Putin is not committed to a full ceasefire. Russia has demanded that Ukraine stop military mobilization and rearming itself. Kyiv and Moscow have also accused each other of launching air attacks hours after the call between President Trump and President Putin. Ukrainian President Zelensky has said that he will speak to US President Trump. He added that the US should monitor any potential ceasefire violations that focus on energy facilities.
The main subject of this control, I believe, should be the United States of America. If we have such an agreement, there will be a list of objects. A list of objects. Civilian objects, energy objects, infrastructure objects. We will definitely prepare this list and give it to our partners. If the Russians do not hit our objects, we will definitely not hit their objects.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin says that Russian troops are close to defeating Ukrainian forces in Russia's Kursk region. Remember, Ukrainian troops had occupied the region for 7 months.
Повторю в этой связи, согласно законам Российской Федерации, все военнослужащие...
Russian troops are now completing the defeat of the enemy's troops in the Kursk region. I will repeat that according to our law, all the servicemen of the Ukrainian army who were on our territory should be qualified and are qualified by our law as terrorists. Their crimes should be revealed, recorded and thoroughly investigated.
Выявлены, зафиксированы, тщательно расследованы.
And from one conflict to another, Israeli military has deepened its presence in Gaza. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry said that overwhelmed hospitals received bodies of over 400 people and added that victims are still under rubble. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has warned Hamas that the attack was only the beginning. He also added that any ceasefire negotiations would take place under fire. However, Hamas said its doors are open for negotiations. On to CNBC TV 18 exclusive. Citigroup Global CEO Jane Fraser said it's premature to call the end of US exceptionalism. Speaking to Latha, Fraser added that India is very critical to Citi's transformation plans. She also has bet big on the global capability centers here. Fraser adding that the company has rolled out AI tools to over 140,000 employees and we're looking at insourcing more of their work.
We have one of our most important ones globally. We're in about 6 different cities here in India, have been for longer than I have been at the firm, of having critical capabilities. And those have really evolved and changed in the 20 years that I have been at the bank, from being more back office support into now we have some of our most leading edge critical capabilities that have been developed here in data, in AI. India is central to our firm's transformation. I don't think the GCCs are going to be in danger as long as they continue to adapt and evolve. The world is definitely becoming more multipolar, and I think we're watching governments around the world react to the need to adjust their macro policies to new geopolitical realities. In the States, we have seen almost all roads leading to the US for a while. And its push and pull factors. A call for the end of US exceptionalism is a tad premature.
And you can catch that conversation with Jane Fraser, Global CEO at the Citigroup at 10 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. German financial company Allianz is eyeing a strategic partnership with Geo Financial Services. As per reports, discussions between the two companies have been ongoing for several months. However, Allianz and Geo have not confirmed the talks. This comes just a day after Bajaj and Allianz ended their 24-year partnership. Bajaj Finserv and promoter groups will acquire Allianz's 26% stake in life and general insurance joint ventures. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, Bajaj Finserv CMD Sanjeev Bajaj said the company would welcome a sane competitor in the insurance space.
There are two ways you can look at this. There are 50 insurance companies, so there will be a 51 in what is a crowded and competitive space. We have seen that for the insurance companies started in the last decade or so, it's not been very easy to build scale profitably just because the large companies are doing a great job. On the other hand, our own long relationship with Allianz tells us that they're a high quality company, and we would welcome a sane competitor, a high quality, measured, conservative competitor into the market to just help balance the market. But I think it takes some time for them to get in, assuming that's what they will finally do. I've also read the press release like you, and it takes time to build a good quality business.
Well, that's Sanjeev Bajaj there. Hyundai Motor India will hike prices by up to 3% across its model range from April. The company attributed the increase to rising input costs and operational expenses. The price revision comes after Maruti Suzuki and Tata Motors also adjusted prices to counter growing production costs. The board of Tata Motors has approved the automaker's plans to raise a total of 2,000 crore rupees through the issue of non-convertible debentures. These NCDs will be issued in 3 tranches, each offering a fixed coupon rate of 7.65% annually. All 3 tranches will be allotted on the 27th of March. Another exclusive tonight, Boeing's Senior Vice President Brendan Nelson has said the company is working hard to win back the trust of its customers. Speaking exclusively to CNBC TV 18, Nelson admitted that the production rate was slowed down to ensure better quality. He also promised deliveries to Air India and Akasa, even as the current order backlog stands at about 5,500 aircraft.
It's critically important for us, the relationship that we have with India. 30% of our non-US workforce, around 7,000 people, are here in India. We have advanced manufacturing, we have a supply and distribution centre, we've invested in MROs and support for that, a major engineering centre in Bangalore, employing around 6,000 people on 2 campuses. And it's extraordinarily important that we support the development of India's aerospace sector. And President Trump and President Modi have foreshadowed a fair trade agreement between India and the United States, and we very much, we think that what we do is a foundation for it and something that we hope we can build upon in that fair trade agreement. And the other thing, of course, is the defence platforms that we have provided to India, that we support in India for India.
Well, speaking of interests of your Indian customers, and you addressed the issue of the backlog. What is the current backlog? It's about, what, 5,000 plus, 5,500 aircraft?
5,500. So in terms of, you started off by quite accurately summarising the problems that we've had. And we have eroded trust. Over these past few years, we've eroded trust from our customers, and we're working very, very hard now to make absolutely sure we have precision engineering, the highest quality production, that we are absolutely confident of every aircraft that comes off that production line. And so we slowed the production rate. We slowed it. Yep. We slowed it down to make sure we get it right. So our ambition is to make the highest quality planes, that are the most efficient, flexible, lowest maintenance, highest availability performing planes that is possible, and to do so at pace, to make sure we can get those planes to Air India and Akasa and other Indian customers that we have.
Up next on India Business Hour, NASA's astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore returned to Earth after spending 9 unscheduled months at the International Space Station. That and more coming up. And catch all of CNBC TV 18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X and Geo Hotstar. The big national stories tonight. Curfew continues to be imposed for the second day across Nagpur. One of the key instigators behind the attack was arrested. The court has also remanded 19 accused to police custody till the 21st of March. This comes a day after 50 people were detained for the violence that was triggered by protests against the razing of Aurangzeb's tomb. Telangana's Deputy Chief Minister M.B. Vikramarka has presented the state's annual budget in the Assembly today. The budget has a total outlay of over 3 lakh crore rupees, with 2.2 lakh crores allocated for revenue expenditure. The government has also unveiled a mega master plan for 2050, which will include infrastructure development across the state. Telangana has also allocated over 75,000 crore rupees for welfare schemes, which will primarily focus on scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. The Supreme Court will hear pleas challenging the law removing the Chief Justice from the selection panel for the election commissioners on the 16th of April. The Petitioners' Council has argued that the law violates the Apex Court's judgment. Remember, the top court had prescribed a selection panel comprising the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition and the Chief Justice to appoint an election commissioner. Later, the centre introduced a new law for the appointment, removing the CGI from the panel and replacing it with a cabinet minister. CCI officials have seized mobile phones after raids at top advertising agencies days ahead of the start of the Indian Premier League. Sources tell CNBC TV 18 that the regulator acted on a complaint. The complaint alleged these agencies had colluded with the Indian Broadcasting and Digital Foundation to fix ad rates ahead of the IPL. Bill Gates is back in India for the third time in 3 years, and his visit is packed with high-level meetings. Gates met Prime Minister Modi and discussed AI-powered healthcare, boosting agriculture and exploring digital innovation. Speaking at a CII event, Gates praised India's role as a global leader in innovation. He highlighted the country's advancements in affordable healthcare and digital public infrastructure. He also underscored how India's solutions are transforming global health and development. In global news, a U.S. district judge has indefinitely blocked the Elon Musk-headed Department of Government Efficiency from making further cuts to U.S. aid. Reports have said that the judge ruled that DOGE has likely violated the Constitution by dismantling U.S. aid. As per the order, the Trump administration must restore email and computer access to all U.S. aid employees. This will also include those put on administrative leave. However, the court has not reversed firings or fully resurrecting the agency. U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts has issued a rare statement in response to President Trump's call to impeach a federal judge. The federal judge ruled against Trump's administration over immigrant deportations. The Chief Justice emphasized that impeachment is not a proper response to judicial disagreements. He also reaffirmed the importance of judicial independence. The valuation of Elon Musk's social media platform X has rebounded to $44 billion after a funding round last month, as per the Financial Times. X was valued at $10 billion 5 months ago, underscoring the sharp turnaround in fortunes since Musk became an ally of President Trump. Well, the big story, NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore back on Earth after spending 9 unscheduled months at the International Space Station. A SpaceX capsule carrying the astronauts splashed down safely off the coast of Florida. They were stuck in space for 9 months after their faulty Boeing Starliner craft upended what was meant to be a week-long stay. Here's more on Butch and Suni's homecoming.
NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams finally returned to Earth in a SpaceX capsule on Tuesday. The crew enjoyed a soft splashdown off Florida's coast and were welcomed back by a pod of curious dolphins. Their return caps a protracted space mission that was fraught with uncertainty, technical problems and political spectacle. They were stuck in space for 9 months after their faulty Boeing Starliner craft upended what was meant to be a week-long stay on the International Space Station. Issues with the Starliner's propulsion system led to cascading delays to their return home. Then the mission got caught up in politics after it captured the attention of US President Donald Trump. He called for a quicker return of Wilmore and Williams when he took office.
We work for the president, and who's ever there, we work for them. We had an input from that office. We took a look at it. And, you know, our job is to take all the inputs we get and operate as successful and safely as we can.
The agency had swapped a delayed SpaceX capsule for one that would be ready more quickly. They said they sped through its methodical safety review process to heed the president's call. Wilmore told reporters earlier this month on a call from the ISS that he did not believe NASA's decision to keep them on the station had been affected by politics under the Biden administration. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, a close advisor to Trump, had echoed Trump's call for an earlier return. He said the Biden administration spurned a SpaceX offer to provide a dedicated Dragon spacecraft rescue mission last year. NASA officials said the two astronauts had to remain on the ISS to maintain adequate staffing levels. They said they did not have the budget or the operational need to send a dedicated rescue spacecraft. Crew Dragon flights cost between $100 million to $150 million. Boeing had hoped Starliner would compete with the SpaceX capsule, but this mission has thrown its development future into uncertainty.
You know, we're certainly looking at Starliner very carefully. We're in the process of looking at that vehicle, looking at the helium system. We've got some candidate seals that we're going to replace. We'll get into some testing here over the summer timeframe with what we call an integrated doghouse at White Sands.
Boeing, which congratulated the astronauts' return on X, did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.